Recovered alcoholic. My name is Pat Rogan. Thanks to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined in this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program of AA, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and for that I will be forever grateful. AA didn't just save my life, but it gave me a new life, and absolutely enjoy my new life. And it's good to be here, good to be back here. All I can think about right at this moment is what you just read, being convinced. That's kind of where we're at. Being convinced is the next question in step 3. And being convinced of what? Being convinced of the ABCs that were just read. That I'm powerless and I can't manage my own life, that no human power is going to solve that problem, and that God could and would if he were sought. And they've spent the doctor's opinion in 4 chapters helping us come to the conclusion as to whether we belong here or not. Really, that's the case. Look, if you're court ordered, you belong. But if you're one of us, if you're the real deal, the alcoholic of the type this book is targeting, the alcoholic that cannot stay stopped, void of a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience, that personality change sufficient to recover. And the light bulb came on for me in the doctor's opinion when they described my life, that I was restless, irritable, and discontent, unless I could find the ease and comfort that came at once from a couple of drinks, or whatever your drink of choice is. And then I was off on a run, and I would come out of that run apologizing. I'm so sorry, honey, listen, unpack. Listen, I mean it this time, Your Honor. Honestly, this time you'll never see me in this courtroom again. And I would be drunk, usually before that day was over. And at least if it was Monday when I made that promise, Wednesday I needed a freaking drink. That there was this emotional condition that existed in me. Clapton calls it torment. I think that's what it felt like. That just would rise and rise and rise, and on Wednesday it would get to a point where this black curtain would come down between me and the truth, between me and what I promised. And I would, tell myself I'm just going to have a couple. I'm just going to have a few. And I just need to take the edge off. And I'd get with the group conscience at Brady's Lounge, and we would go start down that road again. And they would tell me, if I had your life, Pat, I'd be here too. If I had your problems and you were facing that court battle that you're facing, the financial issues that you're dealing with, and that divorce and all that, I'd have a few drinks myself. And then the book says that this is repeated over and over and over again. And somebody finally explained to me why I didn't go home. Why I would call home and not show up at home, or why I would tell my son I would be at his football game on Friday night and not show up at the football game. Why I would sit in the car at Christmas Eve outside the house. I don't know if anybody of you guys can relate to that. That's sad. Why I wouldn't come home on Christmas Eve. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know about an allergy, and I didn't know about an obsession. I didn't look. If I look back at my history, the line I crossed was my lips. I've never controlled drink. I don't know why you would want to control. Why would you want to control drink? I like the effect produced by alcohol and other substances. Why would I want to control it? But I could, when I look back at my history, when I look back at that 20-year run that I was on, it was never anything about having a couple drinks. That never happened. That might have been my intention, but that never happened. I drank because I loved the effect, and the more the merrier. And the more I drank, the more in control I felt, as opposed to my brother who drinks and feels out of control. I felt out of control sober. I don't like sober. I didn't like sober when I got here. And it was obvious to me that there was no human power that was going to keep me stopped. My children wouldn't keep on. There's nothing I love more than my 2 boys. Nothing. And I lost custody because I couldn't stay stopped. So I was convinced when we get to this point that there was no human power on this planet that was going to keep me stopped. That's a requirement. The first 2 steps are a requirement for recovery. There's no requirement for membership here, obviously, except one, a desire to stop drinking. But for a spiritual awakening, for recovery, there's 2 of them, and they're called the first 2 steps. And this is where we make a decision to change. And I didn't even know what that meant when I got to this point. I really didn't. Being convinced we're at step 3, which means I'm going to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. And by the way, when I say God, whatever you think that is, that's what I'm talking about. The miracle, in my mind, the miracle of AA is when Ebby Thatcher is sitting across the table from Bill Wilson, and Bill Wilson's drunk out of his gourd, arguing with Ebby about God, and Ebby said, damn it, Bill, just believe in whatever you want to believe in. Choose your own conception of God. And I believe that's the miracle of AA, because we don't tell you how to believe, we just ask that you be willing to believe. Religion tells you what you need to believe in. We don't tell you that. We just ask that you be willing to believe, hey, maybe there's a God. Why? Because I'm facing alcoholic destruction. Because I'm going to die an alcoholic addict death unless I say maybe. And I make an effort to seek this power greater than human power. The fact is, I can't bring into my consciousness with the pain and suffering, the consequences. The great fact is that people who have recovered here have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. That's the fact, the great fact, the central fact. With these people that have recovered, God has entered their heart and lives in a way which is miraculous and commences to do for them what they could not do for themselves, and that is stay stopped. I could not stay stopped, no matter how much the wish or the will. So I'm making a decision to seek this power. My favorite definition is Carl Jung talking to Rowan Hazard. My ideas and my attitudes and my emotions need to change. My thinking needs to change. For my life to change, right? My life is the sum total of every action I've taken. Every action is born in thought. If I could change the way I think, I could change my actions, I could change my life. Here's the problem with Pat. My thinking turns to an emotion first. And it's usually based on a lie. It's usually based on what I think you just said. Or how you said it. Your attitude when you said it. The way you looked at me when you said it. And then my next action is based on that emotion. And it usually doesn't go well. It's usually based on a lie. So how am I going to do that? If there's an inconsistency in the book, I think it's right here, And people who know the history know why we see the how it works that's in there now, and we don't see the original how it works. Because the original how it works had must in it and directions. Right? They had that kind of, you better find God. You must find him now. That kind of stuff. How it works we read now sounds like a suggestion. I mean, it is kind of a suggestion, like wear a parachute if you're going to jump out of a plane. That kind of a suggestion. Right? It's that kind of a suggestion. But right away, right after that, he says the first requirement. Now, Bill conceded to that how it works. That's not what he wrote originally. But he conceded. I'm not going to go into that. Why? First requirement. A requirement is that to be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. What they're telling me that any life that I am in charge of is not going to be a success. That I have to give up control of my life. Man, what the hell does that mean, right? You kidding me? I got to get my freaking house back. I got to put my marriage back together. I got to get my kids back. What are you talking about? Let that stuff go? What are you talking about? Right? Then he brings up this self-will conversation, which really threw me for a loop, which I don't know whether Bill doesn't go into it because he doesn't know anything about it, or whether he just didn't want to waste time there. I don't know, but I needed to know something about that. And thank you for the 12 and 12, Bill Wilson, 13 years later. When in the fourth step, he defines what this self-will is. A gift to the human condition, or a curse to me, right? Possibly, right? Every animal on the planet is instinctually driven, right? We all have these instincts to come together, to build shelter, to procreate. We all have these instinctual drives. But most animals are instinctually driven or God-directed, if you will, right? There's no discussion on who's going hunting that day, right? It's all predetermined. It's instinctually determined. I happen to like the lion situation, where the male stays home, the female goes hunting, right? And she births the kids, the male watches them. She goes out and gets the food. I think that's a cool situation. But there's no argument about who's going hunting that day, you know? The female just goes hunting, you know? They don't decide which cave they're living in. They run into a cave. This looks good. They move in, right? There's no place. I don't like the way it looks. We need a bigger cave now. You know, let's move out. Need to redecorate the cave. You know, it's just instinctually driven. They just go for the shelter, right? The sex instinct, same thing. Right? The female throws up a scent. The male comes running. Wham, bam. Done. Right? No, I have a headache. You know, I don't feel like it tonight. You know, maybe tomorrow. We'll see.
What's the water bottle?
Oh, I just blocked up my camera, huh? So much going on here. We get this gift called self-will. Gift from God, really. And it allows us to decide how we're going to satisfy those instinctual drives. Or how, to what extreme that we're going to satisfy those instinctual drives. And they're God-given, they're good, they're necessary for our survival. He made them pleasurable so we would do them. Right? He made it pleasurable to be liked and accepted, because if we're not liked and accepted, we're not going to come together and accomplish anything. We have to come together from the beginning of time. We have to come together to hunt. We have to come together to build shelters. We have to come together and get along. Everybody wants to be part of something or in charge of something. It's just part of our makeup. The material instinct, same way. We need shelter. We're instinctually driven to build shelter. But we get to choose what shelter we're going to live in, or how big the shelter is going to be, or how it's going to be decorated. Same with the sex instinct. Made these all pleasurable so that we would do them, so we would continue to procreate. The problem is I'm a pleasure seeker. Okay? I use these instinctual drives to change the way I feel, because I don't feel good sober. I don't feel good unless I'm engaged in being liked and accepted. I don't feel good unless I'm getting something shinier than the thing I have. I don't feel good unless I'm having sex again. So I suffer from this disease of more. More attention, a better house, a bigger house, a better house than you, a bigger house than you, a nicer car than you, a nicer watch than you, more sex than you. And eventually I'm in conflict with somebody or something, right? It's just so pleasure. It's just I live off this pleasure. I live on this wanting to be liked and accepted. I always tell a story about Clapton, right? You know, that I will lie to you to be liked and accepted, instinctively. I don't even think about the lie. Right? I'm sitting there one day and somebody said they saw Eric Clapton. I said, me too. I never saw him, you know. And they said, really, where? I said, oh, Pittsburgh. You know? What year was that? Oh, 73, you know. I mean, just one lie after another. Right? I told that lie sober. I mean, I've told that lie for so many years I believed it. You know, I would later tell you what he was wearing. You know, he was drunk, you know, which we all knew anyway. But what happens? Eventually they find out I'm a liar. They find out the Clapton was never in Pittsburgh. And then what happens? I create conflict for me, which creates pain and suffering for them. They start calling me a liar. And I've done that over. I told myself Pink Floyd too. I never saw Pink Floyd. How many times does somebody come up to you and say, hey, do you know Joe so-and-so? And you go, yeah. I have no idea who they're talking about. We don't even know anybody's last names here, you know? But I say, oh yeah, I know them. I don't know who the hell they're talking about. You know? I just want you to say, yeah, me too. You know, I'm part of the gang. Feels good. Same with at work. You want to be liked and accepted at work because you get advanced, because it feels good when they give you, they promote you. You get a promotion. It feels great. But pretty soon, I'm not getting promoted fast enough. I'm not getting enough people to like me. So I start lying. I start telling you that I'm qualified for stuff that I'm not. I start telling them that you're doing stuff that you're not, so that I can get you demoted, so that I can get promoted. And I cause pain and suffering for me and you. And then I'm in conflict. Then that restlessness, that irritability, that discontent exists again. Same thing with the security instinct. It's rewarding. I saved for years to get a house out in Coral Springs. I mean, I saved for years. When I bought that house, man, it was a great feeling. A great feeling. Look at this. This is ours. You know? My brother bought a house like 3 blocks from me. His house had vaulted ceilings. You know? I got 8-foot freaking ceilings in my house. You know? This sucks. This house sucks. You know? I liked that house for about 6 months. My favorite story is the Ford Tempo. I mean, I bought my first new car in 1988. First new car ever, right? I owned millions of cars. You know, part of it is because I lost my license for 8 years. So to get a new car, you got a new tag. You know, but that was kind of the game I played. But the other part was the car lost its shine in about 30 days. Right? The car was great until it wasn't. Then I need another car. And those guys with the fast cars seem to be getting the girls. So I need a fast car. I need a car that's raked. It's got loud pipes on it, so I can get attention, and I'll get the girl. But the car I had never got the girl. So I had to get another car. And pretty soon I'm driving a car I can't even afford. But I decide I'm going to buy this new car. And I go up to Delray to the Ford dealership. And I guarantee these 2 salesmen looked at me coming across that lot and said, you know that fully loaded Ford Tempo in the back we can't get rid of? This guy is driving out with that bitch tonight. And sure as shit, I drove out with that fully loaded Ford Tempo. And I was in my glory, man. Power windows, power seat. I was, I couldn't believe it, man. 4 speakers, air conditioning that worked. I mean, I can't wait to show Mitch my car. And I go to see Mitch and I pull up and I go, look at that. And he goes, who the hell buys a fully loaded Ford Tempo? He says, that's an old man's car. Oh, hated that car. I got rid of it. I mean, I was in love with that car for 30 minutes. And then I got rid of it. I got a 4Runner, man. Manly car. Yeah. Now I got a Tundra. Big ass truck. Because I want to look good. I want to look manly. You don't look manly in a Tempo. Never enough. Never enough. And the sex instinct's just a drive. But look, it was all about the sex instinct. All of it. All of it was about the sex instinct. I'm going to get a good job so I can get a good car, get some nice clothes, look good, and I'm going to get the girl. Then I'm going to get laid. Because that was all life was about. And aren't we kind of programmed for that? Isn't that what they kind of tell us? Get a good education, so you get a good job, then you'll have nice stuff, and you'll find a nice girl or guy, and you'll settle down and you'll be happy the rest of your life. It was always about the material. I mean, we got billboards that tell us how we're supposed to look and what we're supposed to be wearing. We have billboards that tell you what normal looks like. They actually promote you not liking the way you look because you don't look normal. What the hell is normal? I know I looked at them billboards, nobody had freckles all over their freaking face, And I had freckles all over my damn face, I'm abnormal. I don't feel good about myself. Those guys are all 6 foot. I'm freaking 5'2" in 9th grade, About 115 pounds soaking wet, I don't look normal. I don't feel normal because I don't look normal. Because they tell me that's normal. My whole life was about getting the right stuff to get to the girl. And you know what happened? When I got the girl and I got what I wanted, it was one of the most pleasurable moments of my life. But immediately I want to do it again. And pretty soon I'm not getting enough. Or when I want it, or the kind I want. And I step outside that relationship because I suffer from more. Because there's never enough. Even that lost its shine. I've been in some awesome relationships that I have blown up, completely blown up, for one moment of pleasure. For one moment of pleasure. Because I never thought about principles versus pleasure. I never thought about the pain and suffering I was going to cause for somebody else over pleasure. It was always about the pleasure. Instincts on steroids. That's what Bill's talking about. Taking those instinctual drives beyond what God intended them to be, and when I do that, I put myself in conflict with God, principles, with me, with the guilt and shame of the people that I've hurt, and the people I've lied to, and the people I've cheated to get where I'm at. And anger, mostly at myself. It's clear that a life that I'm in charge of is never going to be a success. And that's what he's talking about there. Right? Why is that? Why is it that I can't keep those instinctual drives where they belong? Well, I don't feel good unless I'm feeling this dopamine dump that takes place every time I get a new car, or every time I get the girl, or every time I buy the new watch, or every time you say, Pat, you're the best I've ever seen at what you do. Yes. And that's gone in 5 freaking minutes. And I need more. I need more. And more, and more, and more. What the hell is going on? The conversation has changed. The conversation was about mental and physical, wasn't it? Mental obsession coupled with a physical craving, a physical allergy, right? It's just shifted. Bill's telling us that's not what's killing you. That's just why you can't stay stopped. This behavior, that's why you can't stay stopped. Because the physical allergy, the fact that you go on a run every time you pick up would be irrelevant if you never put a drink or a drug in your freaking system. So why can't you stay stopped? Because you're conflicted, man. I'm talking about me. You are tormented, anxiety-ridden, fear-ridden. I don't like sober. I didn't like sober for the first 16 years of my life. And for 20 years, I didn't have to feel that. But then alcohol stopped working, or I wouldn't be here. If it still worked, I'd still be screwing up everybody's life out there. I'd still be that asshole who walked in these doors. I hate that guy, and I'd still be that guy if it still worked. But at some point, it stopped working. It stopped justifying my behavior. It stopped giving me absolution, as my sponsor used to say. Gave me permission and then absolution. And I couldn't get it out of the bottle anymore. It wouldn't justify my behavior anymore. So the conversation just shifted to behavior. It's my behavior that's the problem. It's my behavior that's causing me to pick up that drink against my own better judgment. I shouldn't do this, but I can't stand the way I feel for one more fucking second. For you. That was for you. Had to get one in there. I didn't mean that. Sorry.
Russell would be proud.
It's just the truth. It's just the truth. You know, I call it the effort paragraph and more about alcoholism, right? It's my favorite paragraph in that book. What about when we deliberately go out and get drunk, knowing what the consequence? We're not believing a lie. We know where it's going to take us. Matter of fact, the people around us are telling us where it's going to go. Dude, don't do it. You're going to jail. Don't do it. They're testing you tomorrow. Don't do it. She's leaving. F it. F it. We're living in the now. We act like it's a new thing, right? We're living in the now. You know, you got rent tomorrow. Buy everybody around. You know? Get another 8-ball. We'll worry about that tomorrow. And that's true, right? I mean, how many have done that? Where, you know, I'll pay the consequences tomorrow, but I need relief now. I've been there. I've been there. Bill tells us what's killing us. We're selfish. We're self-centered. We're driven by underforms of fear, self-delusion, and self-pity. And we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. The consequences of living a life based on self-will. How do I overcome it? I can't. Only God can. That's out of the book. I can't. I love that next line when he tells us, self-centered, driven by underforms of fear, self-delusion, self-pity, and you step on the toes of your fellows, and that's what's killing you. And then what do we say? We don't think so. It says that in the book, but he usually doesn't think so. Right? We don't see it. We're victims. I'm a victim when I get here. That bitch took my house. She don't understand. She's the reason I drink. The pressure I'm on at work. I'm a victim when I get here. That's the way I see my life. If you had my life, damn it, you'd need a drink. I don't see it. And then what's the third step? We get to the third step isn't the prayer, by the way. The third step validates the prayer validates the third step. The third step is this. We have to quit playing God. We're not in charge anymore. We have to have God's help. We decide hereafter in this drama, he was going to be the director. God was going to be our director. That we weren't running the show anymore. We weren't running our lives anymore. We needed to have God run our lives. He's the principal. We are his agents. He's the father. We are the children. It says most good ideas are simple. And this simple idea, giving up my will and letting God direct the show, is the cornerstone of this foundation that we're going to build. It's critical. It's critical that I realize that any life that I'm running is going to be a disaster. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell for anybody that's sitting here. What does that mean? What does that even mean? To me, what it means is I need to live a life based on principles. Spiritual principles, if you will, right and wrong. In the second step, it told us that God dwells within each and every one of us in the form of what? Your conscience, your soul, the fact that we know right from wrong, even though we can drink the guilt and the shame and the remorse and the anger and the fear. Instinctively, we know right from, unless you're a sociopath, right? We have guilt, remorse, and shame for the stuff we're doing out there. No matter what I tell you I'm doing or how I'm behaving, there's a part of me that knows that it knows that it knows. My friend Ben T used to call it the soul. The soul. That part of you that knows the truth. I can say whatever I want, but there's a part of me that knows. That's the God we're talking about. I need to be driven by that. Later, they're going to call it this inspiration and this intuition. Call it what you want. Some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it all different things. But there's this voice that knows right from wrong. I always knew it was wrong to cheat, right? But I could medicate and block out that guilt, that remorse, and that shame. I always knew it was wrong to lie. Nobody had to teach me that. I got 2 grandkids. It's such a gift watching them come out of a bedroom with the look on their face. Oh my God, what did he just do? I mean, you didn't have to teach him what he did was wrong. He instinctively knew at 5 years old what he just did was wrong. We know. And it says when we take that position, remarkable things are going to happen. And then they give us some terms of surrender here on this whole page. Right? We have a new employer. He's all powerful. He'll provide what we need, but we got to perform his work. We got to do it well. Right? We'll become less and less interested in ourselves and our little plans and desires. The more we'll become interested and see what we can contribute to life. We'll feel this new power. We'll enjoy peace of mind. We'll discover we can face life successfully. Great promises. We'll be conscious of his presence, or whatever you think that is. We'll begin to lose fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. It says we'll be reborn. I was not. And I'm sure that some people that get on their knees or do this third step prayer with their sponsor have some kind of an experience with that. I did not. Right? I did not. And I'll tell you this, if you have an experience with that, it's unsustainable unless you move on. Unless you move on. For me, it was unattainable because I wouldn't let go, particularly of the house. Particularly of the house. That bitch took my house. My house. You hear what I'm saying? This is who I was when I walked in here. It had nothing to do with my children or my wife. My house. I want my house back. I want my kids back. I want those charges dropped. That restraining order lifted. Then I'll feel better. How many times people said to me, Pat, you can't fix this. You cannot fix this. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I'm going to fix it. No, you can't fix it, Pat. I was suffering right here. Did you ever go to a meeting in like an open discussion, what do you call it? Open discussion meeting, right? Where they have the who's got a problem, that kind of, those torturous meetings. Like if you didn't want to drink when you got there, you want to drink when you leave. That. The depression meeting. Right?
Open.
Anybody have a problem? I got to get this house. I don't know how I'm going to get this house back. I got to convince her to give me my house back. And I just go through this diatribe of what was going on in my life right there. Thank you for letting me share. If somebody would, that's what happened. But there was always somebody that would raise their hand and say, "You need to turn that over," right? And I go, "No, I need an attorney." Do you know any good attorneys? What does that even mean to turn that over? I have no clue what that means at this point. None. The rest of these steps are going to teach me how to do that. I'm not capable of doing that. And I don't know if any of us are capable of doing that when they get there. But I could see where somebody could have an experience doing that third step with their sponsor. It's a good feeling. It's an accomplishment. But I'm telling you, it's either unattainable or unsustainable unless we move on and do some work and take some action. We haven't done any action here yet. We've just made a decision. I didn't realize that. I had this misinformation that I heard in the rooms of AA that says if you didn't get the third step, you don't move on to the fourth. Or you don't have a third step problem, you have a first or a second step problem. And that's bullshit. That is bullshit. One step builds on the next one builds on the next one builds on the next. There's none of this, wait till you get this one before you move on. I'm sitting in when the Fifth Chapter Club moved to Lauderdale from Lighthouse Point, and Jim B was doing a big book study there, and Jim was talking about the third step. And I went up to him and said, Jim, I'm not getting it, man. I'm just not getting it. I'm suffering. I'm hurting. And he said, well, have you put pen to paper yet? And I said, no, I got to get step 3. You're never going to get it unless you put pen to paper. Unless you see the truth. Because what they told me was I'm selfish, self-centered, driven by fear, self-delusion, self-pity. Is that true? I'm asking you. Is it true? Well, he said to me, find out. Do an inventory. Look at yourself. Put it on paper. See if they're right. If they're wrong, they're wrong. So, I could be right. Maybe they're wrong. I don't think I'm selfish and self-centered. We usually don't think so. I want to tell you something. As soon as I put pen to paper, I went from the victim to the perpetrator. Immediately. I have my original 4-step, and I want to tell you something. Don't make a big deal out of this. Don't make a big deal. This is about stopping the bleeding. This is not about rehashing the guy who pulled the chair out from under you in 3rd grade. Do you know what I mean? That's what this is about. We are hemorrhaging when we get here. What's on top of your mind? What is driving you freaking crazy? My wife. She divorced me. She took my house. She took my kids. Then she became my ex-wife. Then she had me arrested. She charged me. Just the police, they arrested me. Her lawyer, I got to pay her lawyer? What kind of bullshit is that? Right? The IRS. And my father was on it. I mean, I only had like a half a dozen on my first 4-step. We're going to do this again. You know, we're going to do this, some of us, on a daily basis. I do nightly inventories. We're going to be doing inventories the rest of our life. We're going to be doing self-examination for the rest of our life. We get to 10, it's 4-step, it's 4 through 9 all the time, all day long. Semi-annual, spot check inventories, annual, whatever. This is about staying in harmony with the rest of the world. Me, you, and God. I need to be in harmony in those 3 areas, because as soon as I'm in conflict, I need medication. And it doesn't always start with a drink or a drug. It usually starts with usually starts with sex. Be honest with you, that's where it starts. That's the best drug I know. Go on a spending spree, right? Go buy a new car. That'll make me feel good for a week or 2. Right? Till I realize it's more than I can afford. Right? Why am I pissed off at my ex? Why am I mad at the plane? You know, it's funny how from your head to the paper, how different it looks. Right? When I'm rehearsing it up here, I'm justifying and I'm minimizing and I'm rationalizing. But as soon as I see it on paper, I go, holy shit. Why did she divorce you? You're a cheater. Why did she take the house? She put a roof over her children's head. Why'd she have you arrested? You assaulted her, asshole. You know? I hate that guy. I became everything I hated in my own man. Isn't it wild how that happens? You become who you resent. The police, they were called to the scene. It wasn't, let's go get Pat tonight. You know, it was a 911 call. You know, they were doing their job. I always laugh now when I look at the IRS, right? They took my money. Nope, they took theirs. I mean, you start seeing the truth, and it frees you. It starts to free you. I mean, I was getting relief. The sunlight started to shine for me as soon as I put the pen to paper. My father, I don't own that. I own the resentment. I don't own his behavior. I don't own that behavior. Children who were victims of adults don't own that behavior. Look, I get how life can take you down a road you didn't plan on going. If anybody understands that, I think we do. You know, raised by alcoholic parents. I could see where he could go down that road. I could see where he might have relationship issues. I don't know where the violence comes from, but I became him. Man, it's just like, I don't condone it, but I understand. I get it. But I just needed to own that resentment. And the last thing it asks us is, what tools are you using to navigate life? You know what they look like? Like this list here. Selfishness, dishonesty, fear, and inconsideration. Those are the tools I'm using. We want to expand that to the 7 deadly sins. We can do that. Pride, anger, greed, gluttony, lust, envy, sloth. We can go down that road too. Those are the tools I'm using to navigate life. Yes, I am selfish and I'm self-centered, and there's never enough of anything for me. I often wonder, you know, what took place in because my grandmother used to drag us off to church, and why that never registered, that spirituality was important. That was never mentioned in my house. You know, nobody ever said, Pat, the most important thing in your life is your relationship with God. Because if that's right, everything else will be just will work out. It was get a good education, get a good job, make good money, get a girl, settle down, and you'll be happy. Nobody ever said, man, just get a relationship, just be right spiritually. I mean, immediately these resentments start to leave. You stop owning me. I'm no longer running that tape over and over and over again. And how am I going to fix this? And how am I going to get that back? And how am I going to get back at you? And the tape stopped. And some sunlight started to shine. Now, I'll be honest with you, one I couldn't let go was the house. I just could not let go of that house. I was talking about Dennis O. We talked a lot about him at the seminar this weekend. He was just such an influence on my life. He was an old Chicago gangster. Paul, you might have known Dennis, right? Dennis used to say, hey, tough guy, how's your way working? I said, Dennis, that house, man, I got to get that house back. Yeah, you're going to lose it. And he'd walk away, I'd see him a couple days later. What's going on? I had a house. I was the house. I mean, if you ask me how I was doing, I'm talking about the house. How many people, when they ask you how you're doing, say my car, right? The car broke down, or job, or work, right? Or her, or him, right? I was never me. I was always the house, or the car, or the job. Tough guy, how's that? The house, you're going to lose it. So somebody told me to go to the back of the book and read Freedom from Bondage, page 552. There's a paragraph in there that talks about praying for somebody for 2 weeks straight, whether you mean it or not. Whether you mean it or not, just pray for their welfare, pray for their success, pray for their happiness, whether you mean it or not. Just do it for 2 weeks. And I was running out of, I didn't know how else to get rid of it, so I said, what the hell? Give her exactly what she deserves. That's how it started, But you know what? In that 2 weeks, you know what dawned on me? Here's what entered my heart. Pat, are you going to kick your two boys out of their bedrooms? Wow, where did that come from? You're going to throw them out of their house? It's not my house anymore. What happened? Do you really want your ex-wife to be a miserable mother to your children? Why would you want her? Why would you want your children? Why would you make your children's mother miserable? And some relief started to come, and I called her out. I saw Dennis first. I said, Dennis, I don't care about that house anymore. He says, you're going to keep it. And he walked away. I don't know how you guys know this shit, but I called her up and said, you know what, I don't care about the house anymore. You want it? You can have it. She said, I don't want the house. First off, I can't afford it. You can have the house. Just get us an apartment. And that's what I did. And I'm in the house. That was 33 years ago. I'm still in the house. Surrender to win. Surrender to win. Who knew? Who knew? How we can win the battle and lose the war, it talks about, right? We win those little battles, but we lose the war. When all we got to do is back away and let it go and know that it will be okay. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's going to be because I'm not in charge of it anymore. God's in charge of it. I'm just in charge of doing the right thing, following principles, taking care of my children, taking care of my children's mother. That's just how simple that was, how easy that was to just let that go. And they're talking about a spiritual sickness now. The conversation changed again from behavior to spiritual, this internal condition Mark H. used to talk about. I need to eliminate that, and then I won't need the drink. And now part of that's gone. The resentments are lifted. And later they're going to give me tools to lift that resentment anytime it comes, as soon as it comes. Conflict and then harmony. Conflict and harmony. They're going to give me tools to do that. We do the same thing with fear. I was fear-driven, man. Fear is still my demon. Fear is still a battle. I'll just be honest with you. It's a constant battle for me. And it lives under a few umbrellas. That shit that happened that I'm afraid is going to happen again. I live in the wreckage of the future. I don't know how the hell that happens. Like I'm predicting doom and gloom in the future. I'm on my way to a customer's house, and I'm thinking the worst, and I don't know why I do that. This is gonna suck. I don't even know where I'm going yet. Why am I doing that so I won't be let down in case it does suck? I don't know. Well, it didn't suck as bad as I thought. Maybe that. I don't know what that is. Without prayer, I would be frozen. I would be frozen. I would never do this. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the most fear-based. I mean, that's what they do to us, right? The number one fear in the world is public speaking, right? What do they do, a newcomer? Get up there and tell your story. Go up there and kill yourself with fear. How do I overcome that? I overcome that with prayer.
Amen.
I overcome that with God. Because I know what God's will is for me today. I'm not confused about what God's will is for me anymore. God's will is to help His people. Do what you can to help you. We've been given a gift of our story, our experience. Our experience unlocks, our shared suffering unlocks death and misery for other people. You know how many people come up to me afterwards and say, man, I thought I would lack faith, and that's why I was so afraid when I came up here. Not true. It's just who I am. As my sponsor Garrett used to say, Pat, you are who you are. This is a come as you are party. Be who you are. But I'm able to walk through it knowing there's a reward on the other end. Right? When I leave here, it's a whew, that's over. And hopefully somebody comes up to you and says, man, I needed to hear that. Or, man, thank you for sharing that. And real quick, the last inventory they're asking us to do is a sex inventory. And I don't call it that. When my guys are doing it, I call it a relationship inventory. In pursuit of sex, who did you hurt? And they're asking you one question. We don't care about sex behavior here. We don't care how you satisfy it. All we're asking is that you don't put yourself in conflict with another person. Right? Whatever you're doing, if the other person you're with is okay, you're okay. I don't want a list of everybody you slept with. Right? Who did you hurt in pursuit of sex? That's the question. And yet that's not necessarily people you had sex with. You can hurt other people in pursuit of sex without having sex. I can be an ass just flirting while my wife is there. And what instinct am I trying to satisfy here? And I think we're tempted to say, it's always a sex thing. No, it's not. It's a security instinct a lot of times. It's mostly, for me, the social instinct. I want you to think I'm having sex with her. Right? I'm afraid to have sex with her because if I fail, I'm going to have to shoot myself. But if you think I'm having sex, I'm happy. So it's a lot about the social and security instinct, maybe more so than the sex instinct. But it's a driving force. And they would give us a prayer with resentment. We look at them from a different angle. If we can't let it go, we pray for them. Fear, pray for the ability to walk through the fear is what I pray for. I pray all day long. I'm a big Brother Lawrence fan, man. I pray all day long. And in sex, they have 3 prayers for sex. Because they know. They know it's troublesome. They know it's a driving force. And when we're done with those inventories, we have everything we need for the rest of the steps. That's the genius behind the big book. You have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 all on those sheets the way it's outlined in the book. I see a 5-column inventory there. Some people see a 4-column inventory. I don't care. But I'll tell you this. You have everything you need for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, resentment-wise, fear-wise, and the people you hurt. And the other list that we add is unpaid debts, hit and runs, burglaries, shoplifting, student loans, the IRS, people like that. And we just list them. And what did we do? What instinct was I trying to satisfy here? What instinct was I using to satisfy that? What are the tools am I using? What tool am I using? Selfishness, dishonesty, inconsideration? Is this fear-based? Most of my relationships were fear-based. And what fear do you think that was? Fear of being alone. How many people have that on their 4th step? Fear of being alone. We live in Paradoxville, right? Fear of success, fear of failure. Fear of being alone, fear of a relationship. Fear of being unemployed, fear of being employed. There's pressure on both ends of that. Without God's help, I can't handle either. I'm the guy who drank when the sun shined and drank when it rained. I drank when I got the job, I drank when I lost the job. I drank when I got the house because now I got to pay for the house, and when I lost it, I drank. I need to be okay in every aspect of my life, good or bad. I need to know that with God, it's going to be okay. Don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be okay. Yeah. So thanks for letting me be here.